The American Dream by Rashmika Vaitiri. American Dream. Noun. The ideal that every U.S. citizen should have an equal opportunity to achieve success and prosperity through hard work, determination, and initiative. And this American Dream is the most important theme because regardless of the time period in American history, the idea of the American Dream has propelled the evolution of America to create the great country that it is today. In some instances, as we'll see in today's presentation, the American Dream is upheld and honored, but in other cases, which we will also examine, it is grossly ignored. But all in all, the American Dream is the most important theme in American history. Starting off in the colonial America, let's go to the Gold Rush. Well, the Gold Rush was a time where people from all over America left behind their common livelihoods for a hope in something greater, riches beyond their wildest dreams. Virtually everyone that heard about the gold rushed to the Sacramento Valley. By 1848, over 4,000 people came to California in search for gold. The gold rush was a great example of the spirit of the American dream because there was a social order where every human was given the equal opportunity to succeed, and equality is the ideal in which the American dream is based upon. Moving on to the Industrial Revolution and industrialization, the American dream was the motivation for many immigrants to flock to America. But this American dream had its flaws because it did not keep its promise. Immigrants had to undergo a difficult journey, which for some consisted of harsh questioning and long detention facilities in filthy, filthy places. Once they arrived at their destination, they still had to face a new set of obstacles with fitting into this new culture of America. Because native-born people did not like these new people, these immigrants were not given equal opportunities. Thus, the American dream was not upheld in the case of immigration and urbanization. Rather, the American dream was undermined. Moving on to imperialism, one of the ideals of the American dream was equality. And this was made possible by strengthening nations as a whole. And the way America strengthened itself was through imperialism. Imperialism was essentially America's attempt at some sort of world domination, and this was one of the main reasons for the start of the First Civil War. And this imperialism, essentially, because it did strengthen America as a whole, it enabled more Americans to achieve their American dream. Next, moving on to Sacco and Vanzetti in the 1920s. So on August 23rd, 1927, the lives of Nicholas Sacco and Bartholomew Vanzetti were ended. Both these individuals were sentenced to death for the robbery and murder of a guard. Sacco and Vanzetti were both only guilty for being Italian immigrants, and they were accused of being anarchists with radical beliefs. Yet, today, many argue that Sacco and Vanzetti, that the trial was unjust due to a judge with prejudice. The witnesses described the criminals as Italian, and this is such a vague description, but Sacco and Vanzetti met the profile of being an Italian. Protests and literature made attempts to prevent the death from following through. However, these attempts failed, and on August 23rd, 1927, these people were executed by the electrical chair. It was later proved that the pistol found in Sacco's possession was indeed used in the crime, but it was never proven that these individuals pulled the trigger and actually killed the person. So we can see that upon much reflection, these two individuals were given an unfair trial because of the fact that they were Italian and their immigration status was what it was. And what this meant was that the American dream was not upheld in this scenario because there was a lot of inequality because they were discriminated against. Next, moving on to the Harlem Renaissance. In the 1920s, many African Americans took part in this movement known as the Great Migration, where African Americans moved from the south to the north in search of jobs and new opportunities. And this essentially huge crowd of African American people participating in this Great Migration to the city of Harlem in New York led this city to become one of the largest Black urban communities that ever existed. But unfortunately, this community suffered from poverty, unemployment, and overcrowding. So, in order to combat this, there was this Harlem Renaissance where it was essentially a literary, artistic, and intellectual movement that rekindled a new Black cultural identity. And this was the resolution to all of these problems. What this movement did was it created a new platform for equality, really. And this new platform was paved by all of this entire community as a whole and by no one person. And by creating this equality, these African Americans really mastered the American dream, because they're creating through hard work and through dedication and through initiative, they're creating their own platform for success. Moving on to an entire gender that really took a step forward, let's move on to the 1920s women. So the 1920s women slowly defied society's standards of what its women were supposed to do, say, wear, act, like, and to be. So instead of fitting into this little tiny box, these women were finally gaining a sense of individuality. They broke out of their domestic shell, and these independent women were known as flappers. They wore shorter skirts, more dramatic makeup, and cut their hair. And they engaged in activities such as drinking, smoking, and voting. They didn't just have to, stay in their domestic shell, as I said before, but rather they could finally tend to their own needs, not just for their kids and husband. And they were finally in a position to consume goods just like their male counterparts. This time period broke this entire society's standards. And finally, the American dream wasn't just for pale, stale males. It was also for pale, stale females. And this new platform of equality helped achieve the American dream and promote equality as a whole. Moving on to the Great Depression. The Great Depression was essentially summed up was an economic low for America, and this drastically affected everyone, but it probably affected the people in poverty the most. And what this did was it drastically deepened the divide between the rich and the poor, and what this did was it created an even larger inequality. And by creating this inequality, we see that the standards of the American dream are not upheld, because the American dream was all about equality, and this Great Depression did not result in equality. And so, yeah, that's it. The end, and this is my works cited. Thank you.